Hey, what's up guys, Alex here. Thank you for checking this video and welcome to the episode number 14 of the series of tutorial on how to build a WordPress plugin from scratch. In this tutorial, we're gonna start working on the actual plugin and all the sections that we wanna activate in order to build everything that you guys asked. So first of all, let's write down what we actually want to build, otherwise it's gonna be really complicated to manage. So let's create a file in our base directory, and I'm gonna call it like readme.md. That stands for markdown type of writing, and the markdown, it's basically that writing convention, writing language. I don't know if it's a language, markdown, but basically all the plugins or GitHub projects, Bitbucket projects, every Git project has a markdown type of file where you write down all the aspects and the specs of that specific project, and you use it just as a sort of like description or like an introduction of the project. Some users like to use the markdown to write a lot of things. I don't, because I'm lazy. But anyway, I'm gonna use these markdown just to write as a title, plugin 101 series. This is the title, and when you use the pound or a hash symbol is basically equal to h1, and then we can write a paragraph without writing any tag to describe that this is a paragraph. Full list of sections and features we will build during the series of tutorials, something like that. And let's write list. And to write a list, just simply using the star key, and automatically it's gonna get converted into a UL list. So let's write a list of all the plugins that you guys asked, combine with all the sections that I want to build. And of course, some of you will be disappointed, but if I include everything, this series will be long, like 1,000,000 episodes long, and I'm not sure I really want to do that, but I'm gonna try to tackle as much as possible, and everything that we leave outside, we're gonna take care of them, like probably in a new series when we can build something more complicated after we learn how to build all these cool things. So first of all, I want to create a modular administration area, something like you usually see in really big and complicated plugins. I want to build something like that. Then let's say custom post type manager. So the ability through the administration area to create, edit, manage custom post types, and same thing for taxonomy, a custom taxonomy manager as well. That's going to be pretty identical to the custom post type manager. Then I want to build a widget to upload and display media in sidebars. Then I want to create post and pages gallery integration, something that we can activate and deactivate dynamically in the administration area to add a sort of like image attachment feature to pages and posts, so we can upload and remove dynamically these images that will be used inside a post without the necessity of uploading those images inside the body of the post or the page, and then dealing with the issue of an image is attached to a post even if it was deleted and stuff like that. Then I want to create a testimonial plugin, a testimonial section where user can comment in the front end, admins can approve comments and select which comments to display in the front end. Pretty good. Then I want to create a custom template section, so something that gives us the ability to create a template, or if we generate a template, we can dynamically associate that template to a specific section, so override the index instead of using the default index of the theme. Let's use our own custom template, something like that. Then Ajax based login register system, so maybe a modal, something that pops up and gives you the ability to log in the backend without actually going into a page, so everything is synchronous, so that would be really great. And then maybe a membership protected area, So we could potentially see how to create password protected area where you can create some specific type of users, assign a level of access to those users, and protect specific areas based on the level of access of those users. That would be really interesting. And maybe if we have time, this was requested a lot, but I don't know, it sounds pretty complicated, but we can take a look on how to do it, probably with some pretty nice JavaScript library. Maybe we can integrate some Vue.js thing or some AngularJS thing. Well, we'll see how it goes. It would be nice to have a chat system, maybe something that it's totally asynchronous. You have always pop in there at the bottom of your page, and if the user interacts with the chat and you're not logged in, it sends you an email to say, hey, a user just wrote something in your chat, and you can start conversating with the client. So we can try something like that. Yeah, basically this is an initial list, and it's a really pretty big list. I really like these first, I guess, like 5 elements, like 5 features. Will take us many videos to make them work properly. But yeah, this is what I want to build. In order to build everything, like all of this plugin will become like super big and super heavy. I need to be really strict in the way I write code and very strict in the way I structure the architecture of my plugin. That's why I spent a lot of time at the beginning to optimize a lot the basic structure of my plugin, because if I have just the goal to build all this crazy stuff without starting from the basic and nailing down the basic as much as possible to make my structure modular and make my structure scalable, I will have a really bad time, because this is not easy. It's totally doable, but it's not easy. Probably some of you will be disappointed by this list because it's not including some of the requested that I had, but all these options, all these features, they basically cover the majority of the functionalities of WordPress. So let's start taking care of building a modular administration area. We already have inside our Inc pages the admin section. Here we're doing something really simple. We're creating an administration menu page with the regular add menu page. But if you know something about the settings API of WordPress, that section, that part of WordPress is really old and really convoluted and is not easy to use. It requires a lot of things, especially if you follow the sunset theme development. You saw how hard it is to create few pages in an administration area without bloating your website or bloating your source code with many lines of code. That it's totally a pain for your eyes. So the thing that I want to do, I want to create a sort of interface. I want to create an API class that taps the settings API and gives us as developers the access to a more modular approach. Something that I basically have in the AWPS website. Well, I'm gonna show you in these videos how to build something like that from scratch and how to integrate it properly in our plugin in order to make our development or generation of admin sections and custom settings and all this kind of stuff super quick and super easy. So let's do it. So because I'm gonna create a class that deals with the settings API, I want to create a new folder called API, and inside here I'm gonna use this folder to basically write and create all the classes that tap the API of WordPress. So we're gonna start with simply the settings API, but then we're gonna extend it to the widgets API, the customizer API, the REST API, and we can have all the APIs related classes inside this folder. It's gonna be really easy to organize and really useful. So let's create the first file inside the API folder called settings API.php, and as usual, camel case logic. Let's copy this initial part because, as I said, always I'm super lazy. So Inc API, and this is a class called settings API. And this class doesn't extend anything and doesn't need to be included in our init.php because we don't want to initialize this class in order to generate something. This class is just a sort of like, it's wrong to call it interface, but let's say it's just an interface for us to tap the settings API. So let's take care of dynamically generating pages for us to tap super quickly. So let's create a public function called add pages. And here we can specify that to the add pages, in order to work, we need to pass an array of pages. And this is called type hinting. So we are saying to our script to accept only array stuff, so only an array. If someone tries to use this code without passing an actual array, a PHP error will be triggered. So this is a way of securing our approach in PHP and say, hey, accept only arrays. We don't want to accept anything else. So that's another thing of PHP. Here, what I want to do, I want to simply inject or replace a public variable associated to the settings API with a full list of pages with the new array of pages that I defined or I'm gonna define in the next class. So let's define this admin underscore pages variable is gonna be equal to these pages. So I'm swapping the array. It doesn't matter what's inside these admin pages. I'm gonna store all the full array that I passed to this method inside this class. And then I'm gonna return this, the instance of this class. This returning at the end of every method that I'm going to use, it's important for method chaining. And I'm going to show you what is method chaining and why it's awesome. The first thing that we need to do though, we need to declare a public this admin pages that also in this case, this is equal to an array. So we are defining the initial status of a variable by saying, hey, this class has this public variable that is publicly accessible, and by default it's an empty array. Fantastic. The thing that we want to do now is create a public function called register, because we followed the logic that every time we want to register something or we want to initialize a class, we don't do it through the construct. With the construct, we only update variables and we define some unique feature specification of the class. We use the register to actually trigger the class. And here we can do a simple check. If is not empty, this admin pages is not empty, let's remember empty, and empty counts the array, and these admin pages an array counts and returns true or false if the array is 0. So if the array is completely empty, return false. So if this is not false, we can proceed to call another class or call another method automatically and hook the default method of WordPress to activate the admin menu. So we actually initialize the action right now. So let's say add action, and the add action is gonna be equal to the default admin menu. And let's say array, we want to pass this, that is this current class that is settings API, and then add admin menu method. And this admin menu method, something that we need to specify, and it's gonna be a protected function add admin menu. Inside the add admin method, the only thing that we have to do is looping through all the pages that we pass to our add pages method and trigger the default add menu page of WordPress to automatically generate all those pages at once. So even if we have 20 pages, we don't have to repeat the same code 20 times. We're gonna loop through all those 20 pages and trigger the same code just once. So let's do it by say for each this admin pages as, and I don't need a reference key value, but I need just the page. So for each admin pages as page, I'm gonna call the add menu page of WordPress, and the add menu page handles many different things that we're gonna have inside our array of pages. So the first thing that we want to pass is the page, and inside the array we're gonna have page underscore title. Then here we have page as well. We want the menu title, and then here we're gonna have page capability. Then we have the page menu slug. Then we can handle the page callback. Then we want to handle the page icon URL, and then as a last parameter we want to handle the page position to determine the position of our page. Okay, this feels kind of weird, But what we're doing here, simply we created the settings API to handle the admin pages and use this method that is publicly accessible to this class to store these admin pages, return these same instance of the settings class in order to use method chaining. I'm going to show you how to use it. And then in the register, we're checking if the admin pages is not empty. So we have some defined admin pages, call the actual admin menu action. And this action, it's going to call this method that automatically loops through all the pages and triggers and activates all the pages at once. So first, let's clean up a little bit because I'm using some different methodology or some different writing types. So let's maintain consistency. So for classes, let's use Pascal case. So uppercase everywhere. For methods, let's use camel case. So let's start small and then every word has a uppercase. So add admin menu. Let's call this more consistent. And then all the variables we use underscore for every single variable. So that's perfect. It's more consistent. If we go back in our plugin section and we refresh, nothing happens because we didn't hook the settings API anywhere. We're not using it. We're not doing anything. So in order to use it, what I want to do, I want to show you how to use it inside the admin section. And to use it, let's call the actual use inc API settings API. Perfect. Now we can use the settings API. And in the settings API, I want to store a new instance of the settings API inside my admin controller. And to do it, whenever the admin controller gets initialized, I can store a new instance of the settings API inside the construct. So let's create a public function underscore construct. And inside here, we need to create a proper visual consistency here. And here I want to create a new this settings equal to new settings API. Fantastic. And let's create here a public $this settings. Oh, and here, sorry, also in the settings API, I can remove this instance. So the public variable is by default admin page. Sorry about that. It was just like, it went over my head a little bit. Okay, so here in the admin now, we are using the autoload to call the settings API. We are declaring a publicly accessible variable called settings, and we're storing a new instance of the settings API inside this thing. So here on register, what we want to do, first we can comment this out, and then we can comment this out as well. And in the register, instead of using the add action directly, we can call the add pages class or the add pages method inside the settings class. So let's call these settings, call the method add pages, and inside the method I want to pass my variable pages that is going to be an array, and we're going to define it in a moment. But then because we have the return this, we can continue chaining. So we can say after this, after the add page is completed and return, call the register, instead of rewriting these settings register or this register settings register, whatever. Because we're returning these in the add pages, we can use the method chaining to trigger the register after the first method is done. And you can continue with the method chaining as much as you want, so there's no limitation. The only thing that we have to do, we need to declare or define a pages array to pass to the add pages. Because if we try, for example, to pass a simple name like admin to our function and then we refresh, we're going to have a PHP error because one argument in passed, but the add pages must be type of array. And we pass a string because we type hinted the pages to be an array. So we need to define an array. And here you can define it as you want. There's no limitation. Like if you want, you can literally create a pages array inside here. So for example, let's say pages, it's equal to an array of argument. And as usual, if you're using PHP 5.2, you have to use array and then regular brackets, but I'm using PHP 7, so I'm using the square brackets. It's easier. And then we can declare all the options that we have here. So we can declare the page title that it's gonna be equal to, and let's use all this stuff. Actually, we have everything here, so let's be super lazy it's going to be equal to alicat plugin. And then these other one was, let me grab the list, the menu title, paste, and this is the menu title. This is the capability. This should be the menu slug. This is the callback that for now, callback, we're gonna leave empty and we're gonna deal with that later. This is the icon underscore URL, and the last one is the position. So now we have this array and we can pass this array pages to the add pages and then register it. Before testing it though, we need to give it a proper callback, and then we need to wrap these pages inside another array, or we can do it later, of course, but this needs to be a proper callback. Right now, I don't want to deal with another class or other things. We're going to organize stuff later, but in order to give it, make it functional, we need to create a function, because WordPress deals with callbacks with functions. So if we write an inline function, it's going to be fine. Here we can echo, just as a test, a simple h1, and let's close the h1, and let's call it alicat, alicat plugin, and semicolon, of course. And that's perfect. Now we're passing the pages. It's not going to work because we are passing just an array. And if we access the settings API, what we wrote is just for each admin pages, we have a page array with this attribute inside. So because we are passing just one single page and not a loop and not an array of pages, this code will not work. And instead of having a condition here, say, hey, if this is an actual array of pages, use this, otherwise just simply use the first installment, I prefer to actually wrap this array into another array. And these kind of sound bad, but it's actually not, because this approach will give us the ability to duplicate this array as many times as we want to create multiple admin pages with just one single call. So let me show you. Let's save this section. We're passing the pages to the add page and then calling the register. Let's go back in our backend. Let's refresh. Nothing changed. We have everything. And looks like it's not working, or like nothing actually changed, but it's actually working. So in order to give you an example, let's just remove the alicat stuff here. Let's refresh, go page here. Now we have just plugin, not alicat plugin. So why we did that? If we can simply have a shorter version with these defined methods inside this single class. We're doing this because we can simply, if we want to activate, for example, 10 different administration areas, 10 different administration sections. Now that we have these usable, reusable modular code, we can simply, hey, let's add another attribute list to our array. And here we can use in position, for example, 9. I want to use this, I want to call it, instead of alicat plugin, I'm going to call it test plugin, and the dash icon store instead of the dash icon store. Dash icons, let's use something else. It's the first thing that comes out. Yeah, dash icon external, like the first horrible thing. Put it here, and let's call these external, and then let's call the menu slug test plugin. So just by doing this, test plugin, save it. Let's go back in our backend. Let's refresh. Look what we have here. Test, again, external. So we created another completely new administration area with just extending the pages array by adding another array. And you can write this however you want. You can write it all in line. You can write it as a variable declared in the construct. So for example, if you want to convert this and we say, okay, now we have a public variable called pages, that also in this case needs to be equal to an array. Here we can say, okay, let's grab all this stuff that I don't want this garbage here, but I want it better organized in my construct. Let's say that this pages, it's equal to an array, and we can write it in old PHP style if you want, whatever is not, it's not bad, it's just a different approach. And all these are also arrays. So let's copy this and let's copy these as well. That's perfect. And here we need to pass these pages and we can remove all this stuff. Let's go back here, refresh, same exact thing, nothing changed. So we have our plugin, everything cool. We have the Alicat section, we have the test section. With this logic, you can activate as many admin pages as you want by repeating this code without repeating every time the add menu page action of WordPress. And this right now doesn't seem like a huge improvement, but it will when we actually tap inside the settings API deeply and we start creating custom sections. So let me remove this just for now. And when we start dealing with many callbacks and we start dealing with many custom options, you will see how having a settings API sort of interface class that handles the actual conversation with WordPress in a more modular way will speed up our workflow in generating these things and will help us a lot in coding in a more modular way without repeating the same code over and over again. So it's gonna be pretty awesome. So it's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. And if you want, you can spend a couple of minutes on the support me page of my website where you can find all different ways and methods to support me, support my channel, and help me to do better videos and better tutorials for you. Thank you again, guys, and until the next lesson, as usual, happy coding.